Hello, my name is Ernie Ostick. I am a member of our worldwide information server team here at IBM, specializing on information governance and metadata management. Thank you for joining me on this quick tour of the integration between the InfoSphere Information Governance Catalog, also known as IGC, and Apache Atlas Release 0.8. Apache Atlas is the evolving open source standard for governance and metadata management for Hadoop. If you are closely watching the development of Apache Atlas, you already know that we are all looking forward to Apache Atlas Release 1.0 and beyond, and the development of the Open Metadata Services APIs that more deeply enable metadata sharing between repositories. But in the meantime, we know that many of you are using 0.8, typically or often with Hortonworks HTTP, and need something right now. In this demonstration, we will look at the real-time and bidirectional integration between Apache Atlas and IGC. But before we get started, let's take a closer look at the overall architecture and what we are going to be reviewing. So this is a very high-level, generic diagram to sort of illustrate what we have here and what we'll be reviewing. I have running a Hortonworks HTTP 2.64 environment, a Hortonworks sandbox. And it has a Hive database in the Atlas repository and all the configurations that are required for Atlas, along with Information Server, Release 11.7, with the Information Governance Catalog available, and the other componentry required for the Information Server repository. I'm going to be creating a table through just a normal Hive user interface. When I create that table, it's going to invoke the Atlas processes, including the Atlas related Hive hook and the necessary pieces to get the metadata into the Atlas repository. A part of the Apache Atlas notification system is a set of Kafka topics, one of them called Atlas entities. With Apache Atlas notification enabled, that particular topic receives a JSON message with all the metadata details. The Apache Atlas IGC connector, which is ultimately what we're showing here, is basically consuming messages from that topic, and one arrives that needs to be focused on Information Server, can follow these green arrows, and immediately that metadata is going to be populated within Information Server and will appear in the repository. So we have the table created, it appears here, and then shortly thereafter inside the Information Server repository. We'll go through the Information Governance Catalog to take a look at that metadata. We'll also look at the table as it appears in metadata within the Apache Atlas user interface. And then while we're in the Information Governance Catalog, we will create a new business term. And when that business term is created, the same connector is going to be watching the notification topic that's available within Information Server. So the instant that that term is created or it is assigned, that event is recognized. If we follow these blue arrows, we can see that the connector will then apply that business concept into Apache Atlas, where it will appear here and also be assigned to a metadata table in the Atlas repository. To add a little bit more interest, we will also monitor with a standard Kafka consumer what's happening in these two Kafka topics. Just gives us a better idea of what's happening immediately as it occurs. Let's get started. Okay, here we are. Take a look at the illustration of metadata sharing between Information Server and Apache Atlas. So we can see here, this is the home page for the InfoSphere Information Governance Catalog. And I'm starting here, but you're going to see we're going to bounce between a lot of different screens. And so I'm going to apologize in advance. In order to render this recording and get it right, I had to capture a lot of the screen because of the different places I'm going to be navigating to. So it might not be as crisp and clear as I would otherwise might like, but I think you'll still get a good idea of how this metadata is shared back and forth between the two environments. I'd like to point out that I have a Kafka console consumer that is listening here to the Kafka topic that is used for event notification within Information Server. I also have another Kafka consumer that is listening to the Kafka topic that is part of the Apache Atlas notification environment. It happens to be a topic called Atlas Entities. And the importance there is we're going to see the messages as they occur, and this is how the metadata is ultimately shared between the two environments. Let's go over now to Apache Atlas and take a look at what metadata that we have. If I look at all my Hive tables, I see a list here. Let's take a look for a table called metadata test 00. And we don't have any. All right. So let's just get back to our nice list here, and let's jump over to the Information Governance Catalog and do the same thing. Look at Information Assets, Implemented Data Resources. We'll see that I have a database here called Atlas Integration. It's a new database I created in Hive, but it has no schema, it has no tables, there's nothing in it yet. So let's go back to our base page there, and let's move over to our environment in HTTP where we can create a new Hive table. If you're familiar with this interface, there is metadata that comes along with the Hortonworks sandbox. It's already preloaded. Databases such as Default and FoodMart, but I'm going to look at this new database that I had created earlier. So we're going to select the database Atlas Integration, and then we're going to create a new table. Now we're not going to create anything sophisticated here, it's just to illustrate the sharing of metadata. So let's create our metadata test, create table, metadata test 00. We'll just put one column in it, something like that, and we'll go ahead and execute it. Now when I do, keep an eye on these Kafka topics and the creation of the table here, which invokes the activity that occurs with the Hive hook, putting the metadata into Apache Atlas, and then the Atlas IGC connector, which is going to go ahead and put the metadata inside of Information Server, resulting also in messages here. So if I didn't make any typos, that should execute successfully. And we see that metadata was transferred because of the activity that occurred within those Kafka queues. So we have our table created. Let's go see if we can find it first in Apache Atlas. So we'll look for a table called metadata. How about metadata test? Do a search, and there it is. New table called metadata test 00 has been successfully created. Now if we go over to IGC, we go to our information assets, bring up our implemented data resources, we see now that there is new information immediately appearing under the Atlas Integration Database. And we have a schema, and now we have our table metadata test 00. So we've achieved this immediate metadata sharing between the two repositories. Well, as I outlined in the presentation earlier, let's now see what happens when we add a business term and business context to Information Governance Catalog and see how this metadata sharing works in the opposite direction. So let's go ahead, come over to the glossary where we're going to create a new term. Let's just call this term customer. And within IGC, we store business terms in categories. So I have a simple category called catalog. And customer is the identifier used to classify and I would just put in a simple definition, then we'll say save. When we say save and close, this will put this into the information server repository, and we should see activity again in our Kafka topics. And sure enough, we see activity here when the term was written into the information server repository, and we saw some of the activity in the JSON messages here for the Atlas notification when it was registered there. Alright, now we want to go to our table in IGC, metadata test 00, and we're going to edit this asset so that we can assign the new business term that we just created. So we come down here to the property assigned to terms, and we look for our customer term, which we know is in the catalog category. And we're going to save this, and it's going to save the assignment now, and also make sure that that is shared across the repositories. Let's go over now to Apache Atlas, and we'll refresh our page for table metadata test 00 and see if the business concept has been properly assigned. And sure enough, for this particular table, we see that it has a tag of part of the taxonomy system within point 8, and it shows up here now as customer, associated with and assigned to the metadata test 00 Hive table. If we scroll down, we see our term, catalog customer, with the description that we entered as it came from the Information Governance Catalog. So what we've illustrated is how the creation of a table within Hive was immediately available and registered inside of Apache Atlas, and in near real time also made available inside of IGC. And then the assignment of this business term in IGC created the equivalent inside of Atlas.8 for a tag of important business information attached to the table, immediately appearing with all of its details inside of Apache Atlas. When we move beyond Apache Atlas 0.8, the term model for business concepts has been dramatically enhanced, and so there will be much even greater matching in the sharing between business terms as they are known to the Information Governance Catalog and the more mature model for business terms that is now in Apache Atlas as we move into the world of open metadata. So that's our demonstration for the integration between Information Governance Catalog and Apache Atlas. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please reach out on my blog or to any of your contacts within the IBM team. Thank you.